Hello, I'm Dr. Michael Burns, the bassoon professor at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. Today I'd like to talk about a practice technique that I like to use, which I sometimes refer to as sprint training, or I also refer to as backwards and forwards practicing. And I think both of those will be explained soon in the course of this video. Now, the most common type of practice that most people learn to use is slow practice. And this is a really important thing, and everybody should do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on a little portion of what I just played, which is from the beginning of the first movement of Mozart's Bassoon Concerto in B flat. And it's a little run, and I'm going to look at a 9-note segment of 16th notes from that opening. And I'll do the slow version so you can really hear them now. Okay, now these are going to be 16th notes, and they're going to go reasonably rapidly in performance up to tempo. And the common way of doing the slow practice and then gradually increasing the speed and gradually increasing the speed and gradually increasing the speed is a wonderful way and can often be very successful, but it's also sometimes prone to, for some people, maybe everybody, that at times they're doing this process and they reach a wall, a barrier, unfortunately, that might not be fully up to speed. Like they've sped it up and they've got to a point that they can't seem to get it faster and they're not yet up to the speed that they want to go. So I want to use an analogy of two different types of runner, or two different types of running. If you imagine somebody that is going to run a marathon, 26.2 miles, then compare them with somebody that's going to run a sprint, maybe 100 yards. The way that they're going to approach that run, especially at the beginning, I think should be quite different. The marathon runner should not start out at a full sprint because they will not possibly be able to sustain that for especially the length of time of 26.2 miles, but way less than that. Likewise, if the sprinter is starting out pacing themselves in the way like a marathon runner would and not giving their all and going their fastest, then it's very likely that they will be left behind by competition. So these are two different approaches to running. I think when we're playing, sometimes we need different approaches as well. So in some ways, you could think of the slow practice at times as being more like the preparation for a marathon and a slow build over time. What I'm going to suggest today is an approach that is maybe more like the sprint. In other words, for a fast passage, I'm going to actually practice it quickly. Now, this might seem surprising because oftentimes it's when we're playing fast that some of the problems occur. And that is true. But what I'm going to do is start with very small building blocks and gradually add to them until I get everything working. So remember, we've got the 9 notes. Again, I'll play them slowly. And certainly we can put our metronome on and we can gradually get faster and faster. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go fast. And I'm just going to do, first of all, just the first 2 notes. Okay, I'm going to put a metronome on. Now I'm going to add a note. Go to 3. I'd repeat and repeat until I felt comfortable with it. Add the next. Etc., etc. and I've eventually made it to my arrival point, my 9th note. Now, along the way, we'd be monitoring ourselves. Like there was a couple of those that I would actually have done more repetitions on to correct because I had little slight imperfections in there. But gradually just making it that you become comfortable with the speed, but starting out with a bite-sized amount that you gradually increase. So again, I did 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. Now it's in rhythm. What I was doing is I was starting out on a journey. I was leaving somewhere, departing, and I eventually got further and further along the way and eventually arrived at the ending. Now I'm going to take the opposite viewpoint. What I'm going to do is I'm going to aim to arrive at the ending coming from further and further and further back before it. So I'm just going to start with the last 2 notes in tempo, and the last note has to arrive on the beat. That means I have to make sure that I am able to precede that note. As you can tell, I had a couple of boo-boos again, but as you can tell, gradually approaching, this is actually the more difficult direction to go because we have to anticipate how many notes before and think of its rhythmic placement. When we're starting at the beginning, everything is always starting on the beat and we're adding to it. That's relatively simple to do. Ending on the beat and starting off takes a little bit of practice to get used to, but you can tell that I'm going quickly the whole time. Now I can do repetitions and I can evaluate them, and that is a really, really important part of doing practice. Now, one other thing about this is that we want to make sure that we're really paying attention to all of the notes. I sometimes find that I'll play 3 of the notes and it's all good, and 4 of the notes and it's all good, and then 5 of the notes and it's all good. Then I add the 6th note and the 3rd one goes wrong, or the 4th, or one of the other earlier ones. So I think that that's to do with our attention and what we're doing with that. So really pay attention to that process. And sometimes the note that is a problem shows up in both directions, both going forwards and going backwards. So if that's the case, then I know, oh, this can be a problem note. What I like to do then is really pay attention to the note before that one so that I know to be careful. Oh, here's that note. If I get this one, I often will get the whole passage. If I don't get this one, I might crash and burn. I hope that this has been a useful practice technique for you to think about and wish you best success.